Hello, my name is Peter Parfitt. Welcome to the New Brick Workshop. I'm doing a favour for someone and they're having a new hob unit fitted in their worktop, in their kitchen. And the two drawers below need to be modified because this hob unit goes down into the space where these drawers are. So you've got two drawers here and there's this hob unit going roughly in the centre of the join of the two drawers, but the two drawers are in the way. So those drawers have got to be made smaller, but the drawer fronts have to stay exactly as they were, so that when the smaller drawers are shut, one wouldn't know anything's happened. Right? Anyway, I didn't actually think this would be particularly interesting until I started doing it. And then I realised that maybe you might be interested in having a look at what I'm doing. So let me just take you through the process. Now, I wasn't able to do any filming at this location, and I don't think I will at any stage, and that's a privacy matter. However, I can talk you through it. What I did yesterday was I went there and I measured up the size of this hob unit, or rather the bits that protruded into the area where the drawers were going. And from that I did a diagram for my own purposes as accurately as I could make it, so that I would understand just how much smaller the two drawers would have to be. So the two drawers side by side need to be smaller, but remember the fronts are staying the same. So I then brought the drawers back here and I'm going to make them smaller to conform with the plan. I started by taking off the drawer handles. There are two drawers, they're both the same, drawer handles and the drawer fronts. The drawer fronts are just screwed in from the other side of the frame, and the frame is, as you can see with this one here, there. There were some dividers, these from both drawers, some dividers and stiffening pieces. Those I took away, so I've taken all that away. The first tricky bit was the removal of the drawer bases. And luckily they weren't glued in, thank goodness. They go into a rebate on those three sides, but at the back here there were just nails, 5 of them going through, and that's a pretty normal way of making a drawer. You always want the drawer bottom to be able to float in case anything moves, and you then have it fixed to the back of the drawer, which is here. But how do I get these nails out without destroying this piece of wood? What I did was I used a punch and I knocked them all the way through so that they went all the way into the base piece of wood. And once that was done, I was then able, very carefully, remove the base of the drawer. And you can perhaps just see the nails have gone into the back of the drawer. And I'm not worried about those nails now, provided when I make the drawer smaller, I don't have to saw through them, and I don't think I will. Anyway, so I've done that. And at each stage, I've been marking all the various pieces that I've taken apart, whether they are the left drawer or the right drawer. And I keep on checking myself to make sure that when I'm about to make these drawers smaller, that I'm cutting the correct end of the drawer and making it smaller, if you see what I mean. So I've done that, and then I've done my measurements really, really carefully. And in order to cut the frame, I'm going to cut it, in this one I'm going to cut it there and there. And then I'm going to take this piece here, there's just this end piece, and mount it against the two cut ends. That's the theory. Now I'm going to do this for each drawer. In order to get a really accurate cut, I've put a pencil line where it should be. I know what that distance is. The pencil line is there for my own double checking. But on my track saw cutting station, I've set the stop at the right place so that I'm going to cut the right length. And I've checked to confirm that that's on my pencil line. So that drawer is in place, and I'm now going to hold this in place with a clamp, just to be on the safe side. So that drawer is held in there, and I can now make a saw cut using the track saw cutting station and the TS55 straight through there. Once that's made, I'm going to then flip it and do the other side. That's the first cut done. I'm now going to flip it over and do the next cut. Exactly the same process as before. That's against the stop, so I know that's going to be exactly the same length as the previous cut. Because this is a narrow piece of wood, I've got a support underneath the track down there using a piece of material that's about the same thickness as this. So that then keeps that track parallel to the bench top. And again, I'm just looking at my pencil line I've got here just to give me belt and braces. Incidentally, when I put the pencil line there, it's just there next to the guide rail. I then put a mark to remind myself which side the saw blade should be cutting, which side of that line. And you can see I've written saw and I put a pencil mark there. That's, again, belt and braces. Because if I make a bishop here, well, I just don't know what would happen, frankly. I'll stop doing favours for friends, I suppose. And there that is. Now, this end piece has got dovetail joints there, and they look very nice. But there's no way that I can put dovetails in the end of this bit of work, unless I'd have to take the whole thing apart completely and remake it. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to cheat. Well, you'd expect me to cheat, wouldn't you? I'm going to cut these pieces off flush so that we still end up with what looks like a dovetail joint there and the same at the other end. So this now is then just a flat piece of wood with no bits sticking out. And then I'm going to use dominoes to glue this onto there. So these tricky cuts in order to keep this end piece exactly right with the dovetail ends showing. I'm going to do the cut on the CSE Sys. That's my portable battery powered saw from Festool. The wood here, which I'm going to cut through, is 15.55, and if I allow, say, 0.5 millimetre, call it 16, I can set the height of the saw blade to 16. And that means that if I'm not quite lined up here, the scoring effect on here will be very minimal. Now you can see the display here. I press this button here and I can now set this to 16 millimeters. There it is set. And that's raised that saw blade up to 16 millimeters, which is just a tiny weeny fraction above where the saw blade is. My next job is to set the fence here so it's going to be exactly in the right place. Now this is not to the same degree as accuracy as we were achieving with the height. So there is a certain amount of eyeballing needed. So I'm going to just think that's where that should be. Now I'm going to do this cut without the blade cover on. And if you've seen my video about this machine, it still has a riving knife at the back here, which makes the cut safe, except you've got an exposed saw blade. So one has to take account for that fact and make sure the fingers never go anywhere near. Now technically you shouldn't use the mitre gauge here as well as the fence. But the way I'm going to do this is very, very carefully, sliding this along, and I'm going to hold on to this piece so I can take it away as soon as the cut is complete, and I'm going to then move this cut piece that way at the same time. I've just got a very, very tiny bit there which I think will come off with a gentle sand. That's nice and flush. I can put a bit of oil on there where that sanding mark has gone. And I've still got my dovetail ends, and so I'm going to use 5mm dominoes, 2 of them on each joint. I haven't measured where these are going, I've just eyeballed them. Because the 2 pieces of wood are together, marked at the same time, it's going to be right. That's that end. Now I'm going to turn this over and do the other end. And as I do it, I do make sure that these 2 pieces are flush as they should be, flush that way. And then I can put my line, and I can now do the domino joints. The only thing to watch is that this stock is just over 15mm deep. Therefore, the 15mm setting on the domino will not be any good at all, because the domino machine always gives an extra little bit for the glue. So I'm going to have to set this on 12. Now we can do those domino joints, everything's set up. I put the depth gauge here on stock, which is 16, that's that gauge there. If I wanted to do it more precise, I could use the other sight gauge there, but that's okay. Depth of cut for these is 12. Don't put your fingers behind. So that's both sets of domino cuts done in this piece, and I'll just do the other. Now the domino cuts for this end are going to go in this way. I've got my pencil lines and I'm going to clamp it in place. And I'm using these little Bessie EZR clamps. I use these a huge amount and that will hold that in place properly. At this time I've changed the depth setting here to 15 millimeters, and that should work okay. Right, so I'm ready to glue up, and I've checked that my dominoes are not too long for the joints I'm making, and I'm going to put glue everywhere and then off I go. But I've pushed those dominoes in and they're all together. Now with dominoes you have a little bit of wiggle room, so what I've done here is I've just checked it's not quite flush underneath. A little tap and that's gone down. Just check this one. That's perfect there. I'm just going to tighten these clamps up. Then I'm going to check for square, wipe off the excess glue. Now this is not quite square, and in order to make it square, it needs to go like that. That's an exaggeration. So what you do is, the direction you want it to go, you move that clamp at that end out and at this end in. So I'm going to loosen this off and do that. Same with the one at the bottom, out there and in there. And the same over here. This time this is going to go that way. And the same with the one underneath. That is now perfect. That is now perfect. Those are now perfect. I'm going to leave that glue to dry. Whilst that's going on, I'm going to do the other drawer. Same process, I'm not going to show you that. Now this other drawer, I've had to make it so much narrower, and I've got one of the drawer fronts there to give you an idea just how much narrower, that really I'm worried about the strength here, having to support such a wide drawer front with its fairly hefty handle. So what I've done is I've got a piece of fairly thick stock, which is the right length. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a lap joint here and here. And it's got to be absolutely spot on because I want the strength. I really do want this to be a very, very strong joint. Now this is where this all really comes into its own. I want to do the rebate at 15.8. I've selected the 15, but now I can then keep this pressed and turn the dial and get the decimal point up to 0.8 of a millimetre. So that's 15.8 millimetres set for that saw. Absolutely perfecto. Now what I've done, so I can get my first vital cut right, that's the one which is on the inside, and from there on in it's just working outwards. I've put a pencil line, I've done it on both sides. For my first cut I can get this lined up by eye, and I'm holding this tight. And there's my really accurate rebate done. Absolutely beautiful. I'm just going to check that. And this is just a piece of the stock here, and you can see that that is absolutely super duper. So I can do the other side now. Well, I'm happy with that. That's got its two rebates. All I've got to do now is a channel for the drawer bottom, and I'm going to do exactly the same as the one that's here. Well, I spoke about accuracy with the CSC Sys table saw. Well, the real accuracy is from a track saw cutting station created with a path guide system. And I'm just about to resize the drawer bases now using the track saw cutting station. First of all, I want to put a more accurate square edge here because the one wasn't very good. And I've set this to the exact spot. And I've just given it a light sand just to break those edges, and hopefully, yeah, there it goes. That goes in Give it a bit of a push, there we go. And I don't know if you can see, that is nice and square. And that should be quite strong. Well, the base was very easy actually to install. I put a couple of screws at the back, and I've put this intermediate piece in with a couple of screws as well. So that's easy. I'm now going to fit the drawer front, but it's adjustable. By fitting the drawer front with the handle, at least everything's together and I won't forget any bits and pieces when I go to fit it all tomorrow. I'm not sure if you can see it, but when I put this thicker piece on in order to give this drawer, or rather give more strength for this overhang, one of the screw holes for the drawer front was just obscured by part of that, so I've had to make a little channel so one can get at it, and there it is. I'm able to sort that out. And the fronts are adjustable, and they've got special adjusters for the ones that were in when the thing was made, but unfortunately only 2 of those are available, and I think at this end we need a third to help support this. So what I've done is I've drilled a slightly oversized hole, and I've put here, it's taped there so we won't lose it, a screw and a washer, and that goes down into there. It will be recessed slightly. And once the fitting is complete and the drawer is definitely correct, this extra screw to keep the drawer front all nice and tidy will go in. But for now, I'm just tightening this up. So that's that one done, and my little screw, as I said, is there. And you can probably now see just how much overhangs. And this is the right-hand drawer, and if you imagine this new hob unit goes in here, and it's got bits that hang down further than the old hob unit did. And so that's that. I'm just going to finish off the other drawer, and then it's all done. Well, that's it. They're both done. I think I'm ready to fit them tomorrow. Fingers crossed. I hope I've measured it all right. I just really don't know. I'll soon find out. Many thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.